I feel like I need to get this out of the way first. This tattoo top, quite sheer. Like, perhaps a bit risque for YouTube sheer. So I have a top on over it as to be algorithm friendly. Hi everybody, welcome back to my craft room. Today I'm going to show you how I made the tattoo shirt for my Aloy Tenakth Dragoon cosplay. The materials and techniques I'm going to show you in this video can very easily be applied to your own tattoo shirt project or even just fabric painting in general. So why might you want a tattoo shirt? Well, I've been to one or two conventions in my day, and at some of those I have worn body paint, and it's miserable. It can sweat or flake off, and you risk getting it onto your cosplay that you worked really hard on. Not to mention it takes forever to apply. People of course get around this with arm socks, which I do recommend, but what is a tattoo sleeve if not a more complicated arm sock? But basically, you only have to make it once. It cuts the time that you are getting ready in your cosplay down by a lot, and it might even make you feel more comfortable because you are a lot more covered even though you don't look like you are. And this extra layer of material, as sheer as it might be, can also help protect the other pieces of your cosplay from like sweat. I'm gonna show you these lines. I cannot wait to show you how I made these lines so crisp. So let's get started.
For the base of my shirt, I'm using a material called Power Mesh. Power Mesh is a stretch polyester mesh that's usually used in sportswear, so it's really strong and durable. You'll see a lot of gymnastics and figure skating costumes incorporating Power Mesh. It comes in all different colors, so you can find one that matches your skin tone, and it's sheer enough that you can still see your real skin beneath it, so it looks more realistic than like a nude spandex. I'm using this McCall's Bodysuit pattern as a base, mostly just because I had it on hand, but I had to modify it pretty heavily since I accidentally bought the size that is too big for me. I also extended the bottom of the front and back shirt pieces. Then I assembled my front and back pieces together at the shoulders and side seams. I used my serger since it works great for stretch fabric, but you can of course use a zigzag stitch on a sewing machine. You want your shirt to be skin tight, which it very clearly wasn't, so I just serged the seams in tighter until it fit how I wanted it to. The camera decided to focus on my arm, but you can still see what I'm doing. I put on my finished Aloy armor top, which I'll be featuring in an upcoming video, so stay tuned. Then I took a heat erase marker and marked around the edges of the armor. I just wanted to see where on my body the tattoos were going to be visible underneath the armor. I did have to do an awkward reach around to mark out my back, but you can absolutely get assistance for this if you need it. Then I took my marked shirt base and laid it out on cardboard and traced around the shape of the shirt and cut the cardboard out. Then I stretched the mesh onto my new cardboard model. I want the mesh to be slightly stretched out and to have a firm base that I can mask my tattoo lines out on. Then I took my heat erase pen and cleaned up the lines I had marked on my body. I used a pen color similar to the tattoo color just in case it didn't want to fully erase. Then with a reference handy, I started drawing out my tattoos. Here is where I think I really popped off, and that is using electrical tape for masking. Electrical tape is thick, water resistant, and sticks to the fabric and cardboard base really well, but it's still super easy to peel up. Usually I would just use painter's tape in this situation, and I have before, but this gave me much cleaner lines. I'm sure a vinyl cutter would also work really well to mask off your tattoos, but I don't have one of those, and doing it this way meant I didn't have to design a file to print it out. It ended up looking a little more hand done, which is what I wanted for Aloy. You do have to use scissors to cut it, but it does offer a lot of control on the angles and shapes that way, and it won't accidentally tear when you're working with it either, so there's a lot lower risk of leaks. There were a couple of larger areas I needed to mask off, so I just used some wax paper so I didn't waste the tape. And here's the shirt all ready for painting. The cardboard template was great since I could just wrap the tattoo design around the sides really easily. I'm sure a mannequin would yield more even results, but I didn't really want to risk covering mine in our next step, which is fabric spray paint. I love fabric spray paint. You've seen me use it on the channel before. You can apply it in thin coats and it stays flexible decently well. So I coated the front, gave it a couple hours to dry, and then flipped it to the back. Please do this outside or in a garage because this stuff reeks. While I waited for the top to dry, I worked on the sleeves, and by that, I mean the right sleeve since it was the only one that needed masking. I again masked off the area I didn't want painted with electrical tape and sprayed it the same color. And now the best part, the part we've all been waiting for, unmasking. Look at those crispy lines. And they get even better when I take an iron to the tattoos, both to heat set the paint and to get rid of the marker. And after trying it on, I'm thrilled! I did, unfortunately, still have more tattoos to paint for Aloy, so I started with the sleeves. She has a lot of hand-done tattoos for this armor design, so I'm going to hand paint them on using acrylic paint and fabric medium. You mix 1 part fabric medium with 2 parts acrylic paint, and it makes the paint more resistant to cracking off of your fabric. I just eyeballed the ratios, and then I started painting my tattoo lines on. These are definitely not super crisp like the taped off lines, but neither are Aloy's, and that's what I was trying to achieve. I just looked at a reference picture of her tattoos and did my best to somewhat place the lines in the right spot. There aren't any references where her tattoos aren't obstructed by armor and weapons, so I just did my best and eyeballed a lot of it. Once I got it painted, I immediately unstuck it from the cardboard and hung it on a hanger to dry so it wouldn't get permanently dried to the cardboard. Then I repeated the steps on the other arm. They're sisters, not twins. Aloy also has dark teal tattoos, so I mixed up more paint and fabric medium soup and got to painting. These shapes were a lot more interpretive, lots of triangles and angled lines, and I really quite like the end result. I painted my left sleeve, but this sleeve matters less because it's going to be covered by my armor. And once again, I unstuck the sleeve before it dried and stuck itself to the cardboard. I put my torso piece back onto its cardboard mannequin and again looked at a reference picture to paint on the dark teal markings. Luckily, she doesn't have any white tattoos on her torso, so I only had to wait for 1 color of paint to dry. I was much more worried about my paint smudging if I took the shirt off the cardboard in between my front and back pieces, so instead, I just lifted it away from the surface using my tins of sewing clips while it dried. Once everything was thoroughly dry, I gave it an iron because that's what the instructions say to do, and then just to make sure the paint wasn't going to bleed onto the rest of my cosplay, or me, I hand washed my pieces with some detergent. The water did turn just a teensy bit blue, but it really wasn't too bad. Then I hung up all my pieces to dry, and here is everything dried and ready to be sewn together. I made extra sure to attach the sleeves to the correct side of the shirt. The shirt assembly was very straightforward. I just serged up the seams of my sleeve and then used my machine to sew the sleeves to the shirt because that offers more control than the serger does.
Ta-da! Here is the tattoo shirt so far. Now, of course, you could stop here. These are my pants for Aloy, and I really do not want this to come untucked because I am going to be wearing quite a lot of armor. And if this comes untucked, there is going to be very little that I can do about it. So, to fix that, I am just gonna take some spandex I already have in my stash, and I am gonna turn this into a bodysuit. Just adding the bottoms with a snap closure, and then this should be extremely secure. After attaching the sleeves, I absolutely love it. I think the arms look great. These lines, so crisp. I feel like I've cracked the code to super crispy tattoo shirt lines. So with just 1 more step left, I just gotta push through. I busted out my binder full of patterns and got out the bikini bottom pattern that I actually drafted for my Your cosplay. So you can check that video out on my channel if you want to see how I drafted this. I did alter the lines of the pattern a little bit to make the bodysuit bottom a little less high cut. Literally nobody is ever going to see this, so I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I serged the edges and then folded them over and zigzag stitched them down to finish them. Then I attached the bottoms and the tattoo shirt right sides together with some clips and serged them together. Then I took my box of snaps and hand sewed down 3 sets of them to close the bodysuit at the bottom. And that's the tattoo shirt. I'm super happy with how it came out, and I think turning it into a bodysuit is gonna save me so much headache at a convention. Oh. If you make your own tattoo shirt using the same electrical tape and fabric spray paint technique, I'd love to see. If you're interested in the patterns I used for Aloy's armor, you can find those on my Patreon. No subscription necessary, they're available for free. But if you want more up-to-the-minute cosplay progress, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!